So now hopefully you've been thinking about what is something that you've always wanted to learn about. So now what we need to do is we need to create a contract. And what this contract is agreement between you and us saying this is what you're going to do for the next month. And this is what you're going to be working on. And this is what you're going to be accountable for. And so this just is kind of a graphic organizer to help you organize your thoughts. Because if you don't have a plan going in, it might be very messy. And not that there's anything wrong with mess, but you only have a certain amount of time to do this. So we need to be a little more focused. So we're going to do some pre-planning using the project contract to figure out what it is that we're going to do. So there is a huge difference between a topic and an essential question. So for example, let's say for this particular project, you love dogs. You're very passionate about dogs. And so that's something that you really care about. That's a topic. That's not an essential question. An essential question is, what is it that you want to learn about dogs, or what it is that you want to know about dogs, or what is it that you want to research about dogs? So you could certainly come up with a response such as this. How do you teach dogs to do tricks? So that becomes your essential question, right? Wrong. This is not a thought-provoking essential question. What I mean by that is we want essential questions that don't necessarily have a definitive answer. They're a little more tricky to answer, that may have some people that agree with the statement and some people who do not. So for example, how do you teach dogs to do tricks? It's very simple. You just look up and you watch a video or you read how to do that, and then you've learned how to do that. But that is lower level thinking. You're reading something that someone had, or viewing something that someone has done, comprehending that, and then trying to apply that. All lower level thinking. We want to get to the higher levels of thinking. So we're going to scratch that. And instead, we're going to come up with an essential question that maybe is more thought-provoking. So for example, you love dogs and you love having dogs in your house. And you may think, well, how does that improve my life? How does having a dog? So you could say, how does having a dog as a pet improve one's life? That is a decent essential question because it takes a couple of things. First off, it's going to take some analysis. You're going to have to look at that question and say, what do you mean by improving one's life? It could be it makes you happier. It could mean that it makes your life expectancy longer. So people who have dogs tend to live longer. It could be that, it's good for family dynamics. So there's all sorts of ways you can break that down and analyze that further. The second thing that this does is it requires you to evaluate or justify your choice. So you can't just say, how does having a dog as a pet improve one's life that makes you happier? You need the research to back that up. You need evidence. I want you to think of this as a case that you're trying to win. And the more evidence that you have, the more convincing your case is going to be. So this essential question asks you to analyze and to evaluate. And so those are higher level forms of questioning. So this would be an appropriate essential question. Then when it comes to the learning outcomes are, I want you to have I want you to break down your essential question into at least 3 parts, 3 things that you're going to learn. So for example, one of those might be what we talked about when we were breaking it down. Does having a dog increase your life expectancy? That's a pretty good question. So you would have to do some research on that. And I'm sure you're going to find research that supports that, and you're going to find research that does not support that. And so you would have to analyze that information and come to a conclusion using both sides, presenting both sides, not just the one side. You might ask, you may have a learning outcome. Does having a dog make you happier? Again, you'll have to do some research on that. You will research more than one place, several places. You need to find counter arguments that maybe don't support this so that you can collect all the information in order to make an educated decision. But you must justify. You must say, yes, it does make you happier because this research shows this shows that, or whatever, and all the evidence that you have gathered through your research is going to prove your point. It's going to make your case. And then the last one we said was, does having a dog make for better family dynamics? And this means, like, does it make your family more together? Does it make them rally around? So, for example, we have a dog and we love our dog, and so whenever we are going to go on walks, we go as a family to walk the dog and exercise the dog. And so during that time, we're talking and having a good time, and so it does increase our family dynamics. Now, that's an anecdote. That's not research. An anecdote is a story that from your own life, but it doesn't prove that it makes for better family dynamics. So you would have to find research on that to see if that is the case, and to come up with a conclusion of whether that is indeed the case or not. So these are three very serviceable learning objectives that are researchable. That's the most important part. They can be researched. So if I put in a search engine, do dogs increase your life expectancy, you're going to find all sorts of things. If you don't believe me, I'll show you. So if I go to Google and I put, does having a dog increase your life expectancy? And then you're going to look at that. We have a study right here. Scientists found dog owners, once we get past the ad, are likely to live longer than those who didn't have dogs. Dog owners had a 24% risk reduction for death from any cause, according to the study. So having a dog can actually increase your life. And you would take a look at this and see if this is a reputable study. It's a study published by Cardiovascular Quality and Outcomes, American Heart Association. That's a pretty legitimate organization. And it was a study done over, almost 70 years' time, and looking at more than 3 million participants. So this seems like this is not just saying my uncle said this. This is a long study that shows that through this research that they came up with these conclusions. So that would be a way that you would do that. And so that was just the very first one. If you look here, there are lots of them. Do dog owners live longer? Do people with pets live longer? There's all sorts of 4 ways that having a pet increases your lifespan. There's all sorts of research here. My suggestion is not just to go to the first one you find and that's the answer. My suggestion is you go to a few of these and get an understanding behind it. So here's the Psychology Today. Here's an article here and talking about the science to back up how dog ownership adds about 2 years to your life. That's interesting. I would like 2 more years to my life. And so the study shows that owning a dog does that. So you would read through this and make sure it's reputable, that it makes sense, that it is based on a study rather than just someone's opinion, and you would draw your own conclusions, and you would record that in whatever product that you eventually come up with. So when it comes down to, so we have a topic, we've broken it down into an essential question that is thought-provoking, because some people could certainly argue that having a dog does not improve one's lives because they're messy, or they do their business on the carpet and may ruin your furniture or may chew things or things. There's several people that can make arguments against that. So it's not a definitive yes or no answer. And then these are broken down, this essential question is broken down into parts. We had at least 3. We could add a 4th one if we wanted. So does having a dog, this would be really interesting. Is having a dog better for you than having a cat? Because there's dog people and there are cat people. And so you could this is something that you put into Google search, and you could research this and see what studies there are on this. If you can't find a study, you can only find opinions, it's probably not a good learning outcome. You might want to reconsider it. But in this case, you're going to find plenty of opportunities to find research on this particular question. And then you synthesize that information or take all that information together and draw a conclusion on your own, and then back that up with the evidence. Again, you're making a case. The project goals are, what are you hoping to get out of this personally? This is not for a grade. So we're not asking you like, what grade do you want to get? Because we don't care. We're doing this for the love of learning. We're not doing this for a grade. So what do you want to get out of this? So your goal may be, I'm trying to convince my parents to get a dog, and this project, all right, will help me to make a case. All right. So that's a pretty good reason. That's a pretty good goal. That you want to convince your parents to get a dog, and doing this project will allow you to do that. You may have other goals, like maybe you have personal goals, like you just want to learn something that you've always wanted to know that. So think about goals that these goals are personal to you. There is no right or wrong on a personal goal. I would say this, but a not so good project goal is to get this done. That is not why we're doing this. Remember, this is for the love of learning. This is not because you're being forced to. This is an opportunity for you to learn about something in school that you have completely chosen and is completely up to you. So you're getting an opportunity that not a lot of students get. So you need to take advantage of that and think about what are personal goals that you would personally like to get out of it. The product of the project is, I want you to think about what it is you're going to produce at the end of this that is going to show what it is that you learned. So to put on display what it is that you learned and what the conclusions you drew. So it could be something easy, like you're going to create a trifold. And this trifold is going to have information that has your essential questions on it, that has information that you gather through your research. And you don't have to, you're more than welcome to, so you could put with presentation, or you could say without a presentation. And so what I mean by that is, it could just be an exhibition where you just set it out there, and but it has to be detailed enough that it explains everything if you choose to go that route. If you go with the presentation, you can explain some of the parts of your trifold. You could do something like a research paper. So I know that doesn't sound exciting, but it is. It's collecting your information into a paper. That's definitely a performance assessment, and that allows you to show what you have learned. And again, this is not for a grade, but you do want to make this look as professional as possible. You do want to represent yourself in a good way. There are lots of different products you can pick. You want to pick the product that best fits how to display this mastery. What you see here is a menu board. And this menu board gives you several choices of products that you can do. And you can always combine some of these choices as well. This is broken up into 4 categories. By the way, this is in your Google Classroom, so if you need to refer to this. So you could want to do something audio, which means you actually are speaking. So it could be, and there's several examples there. You could do a song, a podcast, a presentation of some sort. Visual means doing something that is visual. So it could be an exhibition. It could be a chart. It could be a poster. It could be lots of things there. Verbal is speaking it. So this could be a lesson. This could be a presentation. It could be a demonstration. But you are actually telling us what you learned. The audio is that you're recording that. The verbal is that you might be giving it live, although you can record it as well. Written is maybe you fancy yourself more of a writer than the others. And so if you pick writing, then you could do a journal or a brochure or a web page if you feel so technically inclined. But it's giving you lots of different choices. So you pick the one that you feel, which category you feel like you feel strongest in. However, you should pick a a topic or like a product that best fits with what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to make an argument, you might be better off being verbal, because then you can make an argument and try to persuade people with your verbal skills. If you're just trying to present research necessarily and make a case, you could write a paper or an essay that does that as well. So there's all sorts of possibilities with this, but you want to choose a product that makes sense and that fits with what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to show us. You may need to be a little more detailed in the description of the product, but in this case, a research paper sums it up pretty nicely. You might want to say, like, an exhibition that is videotaped. You want to be as specific as possible here, but give yourself some wiggle room to be able to make changes if you have to. So once you have filled out these parts and given some thought to this, then you are going to bring it over to your homeroom teacher, and they're going to take a look at it, and they're going to determine if A, you have a good essential question that is thought-provoking and requires one to use higher levels of thinking. Have you broken down the learning outcomes successfully into something that's researchable, something that can be discovered through research or through learning? Your goal is your goal, but they're going to look at your product and see, is that something that's doable? Is that something that's realistic? Is that something that fits with what it is you're doing? If they approve it, they'll sign it and you'll sign it. And then you'll take this home and you'll show your parents, what it is that you're going to be doing. Because part of this process is also sharing out with parents how this is going week by week. So that is the project contract. You have the next amount until we go to lunch to work on this. And so